Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to the movie review, aka After I Saw. This time it is going to be on Eddington. Finally get to talk about this one because after seeing two very bland movies this past weekend and seeing the new Fantastic Four movie unexpectedly, I didn't really have a whole lot of time to see this one. But hey, I finally get to talk about it with you guys, so I finally managed to get the time, and now I get to talk about it because, woohoo! There's quite a bit to talk about, but I'm not going to really get too deep into it because, well, you just have to watch the movie for yourself. But I will give you the plot of the movie, and it follows Joaquin Phoenix as this sheriff who wants to run for mayor as this movie takes place during the events of the pandemic in May 2020, as he goes up against Pedro Pascal, the current mayor, as he wants to try making things his own way. Like, he's tired of wearing face masks and all that throughout the pandemic, and he wants to try making things right by becoming mayor. But, of course, yeah, things go in a much more different direction because when you're getting elected, yeah, there's bound to be some controversies and with the choices you make. And, yeah, I don't really like talking about all that type of stuff on my channel because I do this for media. Hence why this is called Matthew Davis Media, not Matthew Davis Politics. Because I have a feeling I would get a lot of, yellow dollar signs or no dollar signs when it comes to, but I don't like talking about that. I like talking about movies. And this movie is directed by Ari Aster, director of Hereditary, Midsommar, Beau is Afraid, which Joaquin Phoenix was also in. He's going for a more dramatic route and not doing something related to horror this time around, which is something that I really appreciate. I like when a director likes to try a different genre, and tackling a genre like this, it's gonna be divisive. It has been dividing a lot of audience members, and for very good reason too. First off, it's a movie that has a lot of information given to the audience member that they're not really gonna wrap their head around first time around. I couldn't really wrap around everything that was going on, but I did understand most of what was going on. And what goes on in this movie is, well, it's pretty simple when it comes to what it's trying to give to the audience in terms of what the message it's trying to bring out. And it's something that I feel like director Aster has really managed to do in a way that will definitely divide people, because I feel like that's the purpose of this movie. One thing I should also mention is that it's quite uncomfortable to watch, and not in the way that it gets disturbing. I mean, it does, because there was quite a bit of violence in this movie that I felt managed to be very entertaining when it came to those aspects. And that's when it comes to specific scenes involving Joaquin Phoenix, because there are some very uncomfortable moments in Beau is Afraid, and this time around, oh man, because he's playing a sheriff trying to run for mayor, yeah, things get much more uncomfortable, but I feel like that's what the purpose of this movie is, to make you feel as uncomfortable as possible while also trying to see if you really agree with what's going on screen or if you're not, because Joaquin Phoenix in this movie, he's really good, and in this movie, he just makes some really odd decisions that will make people think differently. But I really like the direction it was going for when it came to that aspect of the film. Emma Stone's also in this movie, and while she's good in the film, as well as Austin Butler, they have sidelines to them that really didn't have a whole lot of purpose into this movie, which is a shame because there are a few scenes in this movie, it's 2.5 hours long, that definitely do drag a little bit. And because the movie has so much information given to you, I probably would have preferred if they added a little bit more to their characters in terms of the arc that they bring in terms of their subplots. Yes, it would make the movie longer, but Beau is Afraid was long. It was 3 hours long. But I managed to get past that fine, and I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed this movie as well. Though, as I was watching it, I do feel like because it's one of those types of movies that gives in a bunch of information to you all at once, it's definitely going to be one of those movies that you can't wrap your head around at once. In fact, it's going to be so hard to understand, people might want to walk out of the movie because they might get bored, because it's a slow-moving film. Not a whole lot of, action happens, because there are some pretty violent moments in this movie that happen during, the last hour of the film, and oh man, it does not shy away from the intenseness of the sequences. The last act of the movie, which I'm not going to spoil for you, is mad. Like, oh my god. That's one thing about this movie that I will also say it's hardly ever predictable when it comes to those aspects. They were just, for me, they were the most entertaining part of the movie, and I had a big bucket of popcorn just munching down while I was watching those sequences happen. And the direction too, Ari Aster definitely has a talent for direction, and he definitely shows it here, as well as the scenery and scope of the movie. The town of Eddington looks absolutely phenomenal. Pedro Pascal, like I mentioned before, is also in the movie, which is funny because I just reviewed a movie with Pedro Pascal yesterday, and yeah, he's been in a lot of things this year. Materialist, Fantastic Four, this, so it's a pretty big year for Pedro, so yeah. And I'm not really going to get further into his character arc because something happens that comes out of absolutely nowhere that, yeah, I feel like might piss a few people off if you're a massive Pedro Pascal fan. So yeah, while I do feel like there's more good than bad to this movie, I wouldn't necessarily say there are times to this movie where I feel like it's going to succeed in a way where everybody can agree on something, because there are going to be things about this movie people aren't going to agree on. But that's the thing about these types of movies. I feel like at this point, when A24 makes a movie like this, it's pretty much the purpose. Dividing the viewers, but that's what really makes them more memorable, is the fact that, you know, audiences can be split, but that's also what gets people talking. I have a feeling that this is going to be talked about for quite some time. Just like all of Ari Aster's previous films, I feel like this is definitely going to be one of his films that is going to be talked about the most, because I feel like because it takes place in a much more realistic approach, especially since it's taking place during the pandemic, which I watched the movie, I was all like, I don't need to be reminded of this. I don't really need to be reminded of this travesty that happened. But then again, it's probably the best, like, representation of the pandemic in, like, so far. There might be another movie to top that, but I can say this is definitely the best film to watch if, you know, you want to be reminded of the pandemic, or if you want to see how it tackles it. But yeah, in the end, guys, I'm glad I got to check out Eddington. It's a film that is definitely going to split audiences. It has a lot to say, so the information that it gives you, it's going to be hard to wrap around. And at times, it can be very uncomfortable to sit through, though I can definitely say I was more comfortable sitting through this than I was with Smurfs. So there's a plus right there. Performances are great, scenery, flawless. It does have its good and bad, but for me, I feel like it mostly has good than bad, in my eyes. I don't know. It might get better over time. Like, only time will tell, but I have a feeling it might. Like, maybe in the next, 5 years or so, I could rewatch this and be like, oh, you know what? I get this now. I'm not sure if it's gonna be the same way for others, but for me, I can definitely see myself wanting to rewatch this eventually again. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and maybe subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Blue Sky. Links are in the description. And I'll see you guys later. Word out.